July 13th, and we'll have roll call, please.
Commissioner Asani, Commissioner Bombach, Vice Chair Chin.
Wait, I'm sorry, she was supposed to answer, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wait, you better.
Vice Chair Chin.
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon Gray, Commissioner Lee,
Present.
Commissioner Onan,
Here.
Chair Stinger.
Here. Any agenda changes, requests, deletions? Oral communications. David?
Thank you, Chair Singer and Commissioners. David Carnahan in the City Clerk's office. I'm here to share with you that the city is recruiting to fill positions on the newly created Stormwater Management Oversight Committee. As you may remember, back in April, the city did a property owner election to marginally increase the stormwater management fee. This fee is used to prevent flooding and now has a focus too on water reuse for stormwater. This committee meets a couple times a year, so it's not as much of a time commitment as being an HRC member, but it provides a valuable role where these citizens review the planned expenditures of these fees to make sure they're being used kind of to the best possible project priorities. We're looking for 7 folks to serve on this committee. 4 of the terms are full 4-year terms, and 3 terms are for 2 years. Applications are available on the City Clerk's webpage, cityofpaloalto.org/clerk. The application deadline is August 1st at 4:30 p.m. I'm going to give each of you a flyer, and your homework is to speak to 1 or 2 community members that you think might be interested and ready to give back to the community a little bit, and encourage them to apply. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll take our assignment seriously. Well, those are coming around. I'd like to do an introduction. And as the introduction, I want to share a few words from a letter I received. Silicon Valley Community Foundation is holding an important public event designed to engage thousands of Silicon Valley area residents in conversations about our region's housing challenges. It's intended to create opportunities for civic participation. Well, those are 2 important concepts, housing and dialogue. You can imagine how interested I was in the letter. So we requested an information report to increase our awareness of the community event. Mauricio kindly accepted, and I'll turn it over to you if you would come to the mic.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Thank you, Commissioners, for giving me the opportunity to share with you the story and work of On the Table. The Community Foundation was selected amongst 10 community foundations throughout the country to implement On the Table by a generous grant from the Knight Foundation. And the Knight Foundation is really interested on looking at how throughout the country we can experiment with civic participation, looking at ways in which we can increase civic participation. And within the context of our current reality in the country, I think that more and more people are interested in looking at ways, creative ways of making that a reality. In the context of Silicon Valley, we have decided to embrace the challenge posed by the Knight Foundation and explore how we can implement and how we can adapt and create our own approach to the implementation of the On the Table activity or event that has been created throughout the country. Essentially, On the Table is a day of community conversations that's designed to bring people together to have conversations that are critical to them. around issues and concerns that they have in their neighborhoods, with folks that they work with in the region at large. And what Silicon Valley Community Foundation is interested in doing is in utilizing On the Table as a way of addressing two critical issues that are impacting folks in our region. One of them is the disconnect that exists among many of us, given the divides that we can enumerate in our region, from issues related to class, issues related to race, faith, and the list goes on. Again, relevant within the context of our current narrative in the country. We want to be able to use On the Table as a platform to bring people together. In addition, we continue to work on the issue of housing and want to use On the Table as a platform to bring people together to have conversations that will not only allow them to share the stories that give us examples of how people are dealing with housing in our region, but also invite folks to consider possible solutions and generate ideas that we can utilize in order to address the issue of housing. To share basic information about how On the Table is organized, we have essentially one person, host. Anyone can be a host. You don't need to be an excellent facilitator of any kind, have had any kind of training to be able to do this. Just a desire to bring people together in your neighborhood, folks that you might know or folks that you might not know. The idea is that host will invite between 6 to 10 guests, and they can come together at anywhere. They can come together at home. They can come together at their local coffee shop or restaurant. They can make a room somewhere at work and come together there. It really doesn't matter. Park will be a wonderful place for people to come together, or the beach for that matter. And it can happen at any point during the day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner usually are the points of reference that have been used to describe On the Table, but folks are also thinking of coffee break, or just any point during the day that they can organize folks to come together. They will do it. While we are not expecting the host to be an expert in facilitation or an expert on the issue of housing or civic participation, we are going to provide basic orientation to the host so that they feel equipped to orient folks that come together. Basic way in which we are going to support them is by having some questions that they can utilize if they decide to use them. So the questions will be embedded within a guide that we are going to be developing, and so that they can utilize it in preparation for the conversations. In terms of numbers and the kind of impact that we would like to generate with On the Table, we are looking at bringing together on November 15th of this year enough individuals that will be able to be organized in 1,000 conversations. If you do 6, or if you go up to 10, you can do the math. We're looking at somewhere between 6 to 10,000 folks brought together through individual hosts to have this community day of conversation. Community Foundation is making a commitment, a very basic commitment at 3 levels, and we believe that it's important to be transparent and to articulate the fact that we are committed to listening, and we want to listen as many people as possible, and if more than 10,000 come together, that will be fine. But we want quality conversations that will allow us to hear the stories that people have, and will allow people to share ideas as to how they would like to deal with the concerns that they are experiencing right now with regards to the housing crisis in our region. In addition, we want to document the conversations, and we are working with a national organization that's going to be generating a survey that will allow us to capture some of those stories and ideas. And in addition to the social media that will be telling the entire world what's going on with images and in writing, we are going to be capturing the information and be generating 2 reports. One will be covering what's happening with civic engagement across the country in the 10 different communities that have decided to take on the challenge posed by the Knight Foundation. And the second will be a local report that will be capturing what's going on in the conversations that were generated by On the Table here in Silicon Valley. And what we're asking members of the community, what we are asking you to help us with, it's 3 basic things. We know that we cannot engage folks in our community by ourselves. We need your help. And one way in which you can help is by being an individual host or by being an institution that decides to organize several different conversations with your networks. So hosting and registering to be a host will be critical for the success of On the Table. We realize that we haven't had an opportunity in our region to come together and have this type of a conversation in a public setting with this many individuals. And again, your support will be important to make that a reality. Sharing the On the Table idea with as many people as you can through your newsletters, through whatever type of news and information channels you have access to. Spreading the word is another thing that we're hoping that you can help us with. And finally, if there are other individuals within your network that you think might be interested in learning more about On the Table, we will be quite happy to share the information, have formal or informal conversations about what On the Table is all about. I will be more than happy to share the information that's posted here in the slide, but it's information that was shared with you through the letter that Erica Wood provided. And, I'm more than happy to take questions that you might have or listen to the comments and suggestions that you are interested in sharing. I don't know what the protocol is, so please excuse me, but I also have a postcard and and a flyer that I will be more than happy to share with you. But again, not knowing what the protocol is, you'll let me know how to do that.
Thank you very much. Can I open it up for questions or discussion? Lydia,
Oh.
please.
I wanted to ask, how do the hosts typically find the other participants? Is it random, or do they invite people that they know? I mean, I would imagine that the purpose is try to interact with folks that you don't typically interact with on a daily basis to sort of get that different perspective.
I would say all of the above. You're absolutely right that for the most part, On the Table has been designed with the desire to bring people together that normally are not able to do so. And I would say that at the essence of On the Table is a great desire to inject our community with the opportunity to practice civility. So with all of that in mind, some folks are getting members of their church together, members of their synagogue together. Others are looking at the residents in their buildings, renters or homeowners looking at members of their neighborhood. And there is a gentleman today who lives out in Pescadero, and he said, you know, I don't know that I've ever had an opportunity to talk about critical issues like this with my neighbors, and they live in farms, and so this particular individual indicated that he was going to go out and try to invite folks into his home. So that's the face-to-face. We live in Silicon Valley, and technology is there to help us. One way in which folks are talking about engaging others is through their Facebook account. Not a Facebook user, but I was explained that there is a tool that allows you to create an event, and through the event you can invite individuals that you know or in the broader network. And there are many different applications that allow you to create an event and invite folks that might be interested in doing so. Just yesterday, a young woman in Mountain View went to a local coffee shop a couple of blocks away from where she lives, and she asked the manager if they would be willing to collaborate with her and help her host a conversation on November 15th. They agreed, and they offer her enough food and refreshments for 12 people. But they said, we don't want to host, we want you to host, and we will help you tell our customers about it. So that's how she's going to get the folks to join her around the table.
That's great, and I would encourage you guys, to the extent possible, to use technology to try to connect folks who may not be part of the same network or even the extended network. I mean, I personally would be interested in hosting a conversation with folks who I don't know, or people who aren't in some way connected to me, whether they live near me or in my network. I know that there is a company out there that teams up people together to have a conversation over dinner, people who have come from different political backgrounds, right? And so that's one way to have a conversation that you otherwise wouldn't have in this day and age, where you can kind of self-select where you live and live with people who sort of agree with you and come from the same walk of life. So I would really encourage you to whatever extent you can, to leverage technology to, again, try to make connections where they otherwise don't exist, right? And I mean, it's great bringing together neighbors and members of the same church and stuff. To the extent that they know or don't know each other, that's great. But to the extent that we can push the envelope a little bit further, and again, try to connect people who otherwise have no existing relationship or common affiliation, would be fantastic.
Thank you. And if you know by name any of those applications and tools, I'll be more than
I'd be happy to
get-
work with you to brainstorm ideas of how we can make those connections online.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. That would be great.
I had a question too. So a couple of years ago, we had an Our Palo Alto initiative, and some of that was around housing. So we had some very, very frank, candid, and in times heart-wrenching conversations with people who shared that they were being pushed out of our town, that their children were being displaced from their schools, that their parents had to leave the apartment they had rented for 40 years, et cetera, et cetera. And it was, somewhat cathartic that people got to share their stories, but ultimately, it wasn't all that productive, in that we really weren't able to do anything but hear them and, see how much they were suffering, and there was really nothing we could do. So, what is it about On the Table that's going to make it more constructive? Like, how are we going to move forward on things?
Thank you. Thank you for that. And it is a concern that here we go again, have another conversation, people come together, they share their hearts, their minds, and that's the end of it. Our intention is to integrate the lessons learned, the stories, and the ideas into our work. Our work is not an event. The event is going to help us inform the work. And we have several different layers of work that are designed to go over the course of 3 years. So that's one way of answering your question. More specifically, we're going to be looking at what are the policy opportunities that on the table can help inform. We also are interested in looking at ways in which existing organizations that are working on the issue, independent of the community foundation or in collaboration with the community foundation, for them to use the information that surfaces to provide continuity to the work as well. Again, we don't just want the event to come and generate all this excitement and not do anything with it. One last thing that I could share is that the community foundation, in addition to the work on the table, is working through support from the Knight Foundation on trying to imagine what are some ways in which we can build a regional media collaboration in the Bay Area. And one of the ideas that surfaced from members of the Media Collaborative was to invite journalists to be hosts themselves, invite journalists to have a presence at conversations that are organized throughout the region. Not necessarily to come and cover the stories, but to come with a desire to have a deeper understanding of how different communities are experiencing the issue of housing, and to help build a bit of trust that can help us shift the narrative that exists on the issue of housing. And that initiative, the building of the Media Collaborative, is a 3-year-long initiative as well. So again, we're hoping that folks that decide to take on the challenge of On the Table themselves try to provide continuity to the conversations by infusing the information and the stories in the work that they're doing.
A question or comment?
Commissioner Lenan asked it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had one additional question. Is the work intended to be region-wide, or is the report out going to make recommendations city by city, when you talk about policy?
So we're looking at the region, and we cannot anticipate how cities are going to step forward. This afternoon, I spent a couple of hours in the city of Mountain View. They have expressed interest to participate. They're looking at ways of taking on the responsibility of hosting several different tables with residents to do exactly what you had proposed. And I imagine that they're going to be looking, independent of what's going on in other cities, how to address some of the local issues that they're facing. However, the Community Foundation is going to be kind of providing the forum for a regional conversation, and we will take the recommendations and the ideas to different communities and different cities in the hope that folks embrace the information and utilize it to advance their local agendas.
Will there be room in the template to tailor it to a city? If we had some specific questions about Palo Alto policies that are on the table.
So thank you for that question. That's a very important question for the implementation of On the Table. Since we were talking about technology earlier, think of open source technology for a minute when you think of On the Table. We are creating a guide that is going to suggest how communities can use the On the Table experience to have a conversation about housing. We cannot control and are not intending to control every conversation or the conversation. So with that in mind, if Palo Alto has some particular interests that would like to be addressed in the context of On the Table, you will have the space to do the adjustments necessary in order to inform the host that you engage to surface those issues that you're concerned about. So ultimately, we are creating an open source tool and hoping that as many people as possible use it and make it their own. And that will require that you determine the direction of the conversations.
Thank you. Any other comments,
I
questions?
have a couple follow-up
Please.
questions. When are you hoping to have the report ready? What is the time frame for that?
So the report most likely will be ready the beginning or middle of January. The organization that we're working with that will be generating the report needs to first make sure that all the national experiments are completed for the first report to be created. And they will then be working on the local regional report for us. One thing to mention about both the last two questions, we are the only region that's doing On the Table. Most of the other communities are cities that are doing On the Table. So it is important for us to take into consideration the time that it will take for them to create a regional story of our work. So most likely the middle of January, beginning to the middle of January.
I definitely think if there's interest from the commission, perhaps having you back in February or so to sort of go over what you've been able to pull together from these many conversations. And some initial thoughts I had would be that it'd be great if, as a city, if we could put together some of our own on-the-table conversations, whether it's each commission does it or a bunch of cross-section of elected and city employees. I think it would be great if we could have a couple sort of official on-the-table conversations, and maybe even leverage the power of Facebook Live, to the extent that people are willing to talk, to Facebook Live, so that people get to hear and see people's stories and the conversations, and they can, even if they can't be there in person, they can engage with their own stories by commenting in that feed. So I think that might be one way to magnify these conversations, is, having cities sort of sanction some of them, and as well as using technology to broadcast these stories and engage folks that way. I think that would be a great way to involve even more people than it seems like you guys are aiming for a significant crowd, but involving even more people.
I'm excited to come back. You let me know when, and those are wonderful ideas, and you let me know how we can support you in making them a reality.
Great. I mean, if I could suggest that for future agendas, we discuss what role the commission or the city might want to play with on the table, I would like to make that suggestion.
I think that's appropriate either for the next agenda or for the retreat priority setting.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any last
Thank you all.
questions? Thank you very much. Is it possible, could you forward your PowerPoint presentation to Mary, who you communicated with?
I'll be happy to do so.
That'd be great.
Is it
Thank
okay
you.
if I do it in the morning?
I think that's fine.
I'll do it right now. Thank
No. Number 31 on Friday's agenda.
you. I'll take care of it.
Appreciate
No
it.
problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we have a full agenda of important issues. I want to move now to say there's rhetoric, there's actual hardship, and there's legislation, and the challenge is to try to understand it and know what it means in Santa Clara County. So to do that, I've asked Maria Love, who's Director of the Santa Clara County Office of Immigrant Relations, to speak to us. And I'll let you do your presentation, then I have a ton of questions, and I'm sure we all do. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Commission members. This is certainly, it's been a very popular topic within the county, so I really do appreciate the ability to be able to speak today. So I will be sharing some information with you about mainly some of the concerns that we have been hearing from many residents throughout the county, which includes actually some Palo Alto residents, as well as some of the strategies that the county has been engaging on and hopefully will be engaging on in the future to address some of those concerns. One of the things, though, that I wanted to talk to you about was the Office of Immigrant Relations and really the role that we're hoping to play within all the cities in the county. One of the things that we are hoping to do, our office hasn't really been around that long. It's only about 2 years old. And one of the things that we really see ourselves as the convener of sort of bringing all the cities together to have the discussion and open up the conversation about what are some of the impacts that cities are seeing in their immigrant residents. We know that Santa Clara County, it's an extremely diverse county. Approximately 40% of the county population are foreign-born, which it's most certainly a large portion of the population. Out of that, the majority of the residents are actually of Asian descent, which compose approximately 62%, excuse me, of the 40% overall. The second largest group is the Latin American, with the third being European. So we've definitely seen, quite the change within the residents of the county. And one of the things that we most certainly want to do is we want to make sure that we have those conversations with the city so that we can better understand. Santa Clara County, definitely, I would say not every, all the cities are very unique and different in terms of what they offered, in terms of how residents engaged within the cities. So we definitely want to make sure that we take the opportunity to be able to better understand so that we can better tailor our policies from the County Board of Supervisors to really specifically try to be as inclusive as possible. The city of San Jose has been obviously the largest city within the county, so they've been certainly working on a number of different initiatives, but we want to make sure that the other cities in the county have the same opportunity. Just because they have the lowest, portions of the population countywide doesn't mean that the issues are not as severe or as needed as the other cities. So we certainly want to make sure that we're looking at it from that perspective, and not just because, you have the largest group. The county has definitely shifted quite a bit on what it's been doing since the election. There is really three main areas that we have seen that people are really bringing up to our attention their concerns. One is the issue of fear, and them really not feeling that they are being supported in the sense of they don't know who is here to help them and who's not. All the rhetoric that we hear on the news every single day, it's really having an impact on the residents. They do not know, parents more specifically, are really afraid of sending their children to school. And we are actually seeing now that school is out, but within the first couple of months within the year, we certainly saw an impact of parents not sending their children to school because they were afraid that the parents would be deported. We are seeing a lot of children that are experiencing a lot of anxiety, and we do hear that from a number of school districts, that they are most certainly very concerned about how children are just terrified, that they're going to be dropped off at school and then they're going to get home and their parents will be gone. So one of and I brought a handout for all of you, in some of really the areas that the county it's working on to address some of those issues. I think all of you probably have heard a couple of different executive orders that have been signed by the president. One of them has been sort of the securing the borders, which has really, I think, been the most impactful, which is the one that would increase the number of ICE agents to sort of expand the number of deportations that happened. I think the most common and the one we hear the most is about building the wall, which seems like that's something that we hear every day. And then there's the Muslim ban, which it's now, we thought we were more certainly going to be okay, but as it turns out with the Supreme Court ruling, it's now becoming more of a bigger topic of conversation. And how is that, even though not the entire executive order, it's being implemented, there's continue to create that fear that the Muslim community is not feeling safe. So one of the really a couple of pieces that the county has been engaging in, and I would say probably since the fall of 2016, beginning the fall of 2016, has really been involved in a lot of really providing information in the form of proclamations to really emphasize and to let the community know that Santa Clara County as a government organization is here to protect you. So there's been a number of those that have been passed by the Board of Supervisors. I think probably the most significant policy or decision that has been made by the Board of Supervisors was the lawsuit, and how the County of Santa Clara sued the federal government, and more specifically the president, in the whole area of sanctuary cities, and what that would mean, in the fact that Santa Clara County as a whole would seem to lose over $1 billion if sort of that were to be implemented. So Santa Clara County actually won that lawsuit. And it was, what that did was placed an injunction countrywide in every single state that would sort of keep the federal government from going after cities or counties that were considered to be sanctuary. So that is, I think, probably one of the biggest areas that we feel that we have really been able to tell the community that we are committed to really fighting the government on these policies that we find that are unjust and don't really have any reason why they should be there, given the fact that there's been a number of studies that indicate that sanctuary jurisdictions actually have lower crime than those that don't, because people feel they can trust the police even more. So that's, and there's been a number of other sort of pieces of proclamations about protecting the Muslim community, et cetera. I think the other piece, Santa Clara County also created a federal legislative advocacy task force that meets on a monthly basis, that is composed of legislators throughout the state, as well as a number of Board of Supervisors, on which sort of really issues that impact county residents in general are discussed. So this is the main goal for this task force is really to be able to identify the impacts and try to anticipate some of the changes that may be needed to address some of those impacts, whether that is with passing policies, whether that is with creating new local regulations, et cetera, that will allow for the county to be able to prevent some of the potential negative impact that some of these federal policies may bring. So they've begun to meet a couple of times, and obviously the issue of immigration is one that's regularly on the agenda. I think the other and probably the most, I would say, biggest change or the biggest initiative that the county has created was the Board of Supervisors in June, actually it was May, they approved a $3.5 million investment to create a deportation defense and education project that would fund community-based organizations throughout the county to be able to provide education on know your rights in multiple languages, as well as it would fund legal service providers to actually be able to provide deportation defense. That is probably one of the biggest areas that we felt that where the biggest need was. There is definitely a large number of county residents that are either in deportation proceedings, that are detained at detention centers, or there's those that are in proceedings that are not detained, but have deportation orders, that they sort of need to find an attorney in order to get assistance so that they're not deported. There is definitely a large number of Santa Clara County residents. We're trying to determine what cities those residents are actually living in, and we hope that as we work with legal service providers, we're going to be able to have a better idea of what the impact is in the cities on the number of people that have a need for an attorney to sort of help them through those deportations proceedings. The other part that I think has been ramping up quite a bit is the education part of it. In my office, the Office of Immigrant Relations, we are providing education to a number of different bodies. We provide Know Your Rights education to schools, to community-based organizations, to any really, pretty soon we'll be doing it to the libraries, to really both train staff on how to potentially, not necessarily respond or what to do is, let's say, ICE agents sort of show up and want to get information, and as well as information on Know Your Rights. So those are sort of the two biggest areas that we're providing education on. Obviously, a lot of people that work, whether that's in government agencies or non-government agencies, really want to know, what do I do if an ICE agent wants to get information on someone or is looking for someone. So that's definitely one of the biggest areas that we see for need for organizations and agencies that they're looking for. But in terms of Know Your Rights, I think one of the most important elements, I think it's for people to understand and for the general community to know what really the rights are when they are, whether that's pulled over or whether someone comes to their home, an ICE agent, and what are the rights within that? Do they have to respond? Do they have to, do what they say? That sort of thing, which is really the education part has been what's been keeping us the most busy with really being able to provide that type of information. So we created a number of materials that we've shared at each of these trainings, both materials that are specifically for parents in terms of what parents can do and prepare, what we call the family preparedness plan, in situations when, a parent unfortunately needs to think about, if I'm get deported, who's going to pick up my children or what's going to happen to my children. So that, and we've created this in multiple languages. We have it in 6 different languages that it's available, that we either have it on our website or we're able to provide to any organization that sort of wants to be able to make that available to the community, as well as the small little red cards that we have also created that people can carry in their wallet, that they can actually either give to an ICE agent that says, I don't have to talk to you, or really provides them with information on what to do. So those are sort of, I think, the pieces that we have working on the most, because that's what we've identified is the biggest need. Obviously, there is a lot more that we're, continuing to do. But I think ultimately what we really want is we want to engage, as I said at the very beginning, all the cities within the county, and hopefully we'll be convening every city within the county fairly soon, so that we can have a much larger conversation. And I think cities can more specifically share some of the issues that they're seeing in their cities that may differ from the ones that we've heard of. So that's definitely one of the things that we hope that the city of Palo Alto will sort of join us with, And we'll definitely be able to provide or share some of the materials that we have available, as well as help us better understand what the needs of the residents of the city are. So I'm ready for questions.
Well, first, I applaud you, and then I open it up for questions. Commissioner?
Yes, I was curious as to how are you working with police agencies throughout the county? Because a lot of immigrants are now afraid to go to the police, but they do need police protection just as we all do.
Yes, so there's a couple of different things that we're doing. We are definitely directly engaging with the police departments to sort of provide them some of these materials, but also to give them some information as to some of the feedback we're getting as to why is it that they're afraid and why it is that they don't want to call the police. However, what we're finding that it's more effective is to have community-based organizations actually inform the residents or provide information to the residents about it's okay for you to report crimes. And I think this project that which is launched on July 1st, which is the Deportation Defense and Education, the majority of those agencies are legal service providers. And for whatever reason, we find that residents really make that connection with community-based organizations and they trust them. So if they have an attorney to say, you know, it's okay for you to contact the police, and if not, you can come to me and you know, I can help you know what to say, what to do. So that sort of gives them more reassurance that it's okay for them to do that. So we're sort of doing that more than we are sort of having, you know, police officers sort of stand in front of the community and sort of talk. Because again, if they're already afraid of the police, then they're most likely not gonna, you know, trust them right away if they're standing in front of a crowd. So we're sort of approaching at it from that perspective, and we're seeing that as the most effective way.
Well, first I wanted to say thank you for everything that you're doing, and I hope, one of my hopes is when you convene, you know, all the various cities and entities within the county, that not only is it a listening and learning experience, but hopefully we can use it as sort of a coordination opportunity. You know, people move around quite a bit in the Bay Area, whether it's, you know, commuting to work or they, you know, they live in different spots. So to the extent that we can create uniform policies across different police departments, cities, school districts, so that it's easy for people to be confident that, you know, the Bay Area, that this county is really strong advocates for them and are willing to, you know, protect them, I think would be a tremendous help. You know,
Yes.
so that folks, regardless of where they go, they can know, okay, you know, everyone's sort of on the same page.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's why, and that's, you're absolutely right, that our residents are mobile in the sense of they live in one city and they work in another, or vice versa. So yes, if we can have a consistent message and a consistent way of information sharing, then no matter where they are, they're always going to get the same type of information.
Exactly.
Which is one thing that I should mention is the other piece that we're working on is a countywide communications and media campaign. That it's really, we're hoping to launch it in October, and we're working to really create a message. And we're hoping to engage all the cities to help us build that message, so that we can then take that out to the community, so that to let them know that it doesn't matter where you live or where you work, you're in a safe space. So that's definitely another piece that we find it is very important. There is so much information out there, and you know, unfortunately, we all heard about the fake news. So there's tons of information out there that is not accurate. So we want to really try to tackle that as quickly and as possible, so that we can sort of not necessarily control the message, but we can then be used as a trusted source of information, so that people do contact us directly, so that they're not really getting misinformation.
Well, so at our last commission meeting, we had a number of folks from the community who were talking about wanting the Palo Alto Police Department to adopt some of the ACLU's recommendations and such. And so there's definitely an interest in, you know, various jurisdictions in this county making their policies and stances on these issues stronger. And I think that, we're only as strong as sort of our weakest link. So,
Right.
While Palo Alto may adopt the strongest policies, if other cities in the county aren't doing the same, then the word about those policies get out, and people might not feel safe even in Palo Alto because they hear, oh, well, maybe Sunnyvale or, San Jose
Right.
doesn't have stringent. So, we have to be, we can only be as strong as sort of the weakest link in the county. And so to the extent that you can help share our best practices and encourage folks to all sort of rise to the highest possible level that we can be.
Yeah,
think would be
absolutely.
fantastic.
And I think as important though, even though we are really trying to take our message out to the residents, the immigrant population, we feel that it's as important to really engage the community as a whole, right? Because we want to make sure that people feel safe going to their neighbor. And that their neighbor sort of it's able to help them sort of go through whatever it is that they're going through. So we're really hoping that that campaign will not only sort of provide a message to the immigrant community, which is experiencing all this fear, but it would also allow for the what we call the receiving community to also be able to get involved in have those conversations and be able to also share those same messages, so that it's all really a true really community effort. So we are definitely want to be, I should say, that centralized sort of hub for all the cities. Want to be able to make sure that the materials that are being created are being shared, because as you mentioned, there's been a number of national organizations that have created incredible materials. But a lot of these sort of are targeted to whether this the state that organization is, and it may not necessarily speak sort of to, the locality or specific cities. So we want to create materials that do sort of speak to the residents of the county, so that they do feel that, oh, you know what, this was created for me. So we definitely want to make sure that, and we're sort of, I call it, I'm taking this like show on the road with all the cities, so that we can really try to make sure that all the cities come to our office, whether they're seeking information, so that we can then ensure that the right information is being shared.
Do you know the status of SB 54?
Yes, I believe SB 54 is in the Appropriations Committee at this point. I don't know specifically how quickly they're going to get through that process, but I know the county itself has submitted a letter of support from the board president directly to the authors of the bill, because we are strong supporters of that. So we are definitely tracking sort of there, and there is a number of immigration bills that are out there. I want to say there's over 10 of them that are looking to address many different areas within immigration, but definitely 54, we're hoping it's going to be one of the ones that will be fast-tracked.
If we were to look at the city's regulations with regard to how to address immigration officials, if we made our regulations consistent with SB 54, would there be any gaps?
That's an
Or is that a
excellent
reasonable
question.
goal?
I would say it is, but I think, ultimately, one of the things that we try to look at is whether or not, and specifically with SB 54, whether or not all of the elements that are being put forth in that specific bill will sort of try to accomplish what we sort of see as creating a safe community. So our legislative task force is actually sort of looking at the various bills with the hope that we can sort of pull the specific areas that we can then share and say, these are probably all the different areas that are specific to this bill that you could potentially sort of implement or sort of incorporate into sort of regulations, whether your city or whether that's the county. So I'd say that's probably a question that we would probably be able to answer at a later time. I think once we have more information, and I think once the bill has sort of moved forth closer to, I would say, getting ready for the, because nothing's really final until the governor signs it, right? So there could be like major changes between now and that point. So that's why we sort of say in that particular situation, we would have to, I would say, wait until a final bill has been signed so that we can know for certain what's in the bill and what's being implemented, so that we can then provide some guidance to cities to say, this is what we think you should incorporate within your policies. Yeah.
The legislative task force, is that separate? Is that the advisory task force that you
Yes.
described?
Yes, so that's the one that sort of looks at, that's the one, the Federal Legislative Advocacy Task Force. So they look at both federal and state legislation and the impacts to the county as a whole.
So do you have any, are you collecting any data, or are you looking at incident reports, or can you tell if there's a difference in people who've gone to health facilities a year ago versus the number going now? Can you see any changes in behavior?
That's an interesting question, because we are seeing changes in behavior. In some of them, we're seeing people sort of looking for more services, versus others, we're seeing people are foregoing services. One example is we have been working very closely with Valley Medical Center because they have been reporting a dramatic decrease in the number of people that are coming through the emergency room. And they were sort of curious, why is it that that's happening? Why is it that all of a sudden people don't want to come in? And so they sort of starting asking questions, and the two main reasons that people were given was because they were afraid of their information, if they give any information to the hospital, that was going to be shared with federal authorities, or if they sort of came to, let's say, the hospital or any other clinic setting, that ICE was just going to be able to come in and sort of take them and deport them. So we are sort of working very closely with them to sort of provide better education. So that's one piece. The other piece is we've definitely seen a dramatic increase in the number of people that are seeking legal service providers. Not only because not necessarily because they are in deportation proceedings, but more importantly because they want to sort of seek other affirmative relief for immigration, and how they can ensure that their situation, or that they become legal permanent residents, or that they sort of have a more stable immigration and they can actually, it's very interesting, because one of the things that we are seeing is that people want to become citizens now more than ever. So that is probably one of the biggest things, which is wonderful, right? There is a large number of people that are legal permanent residents that are eligible to become citizens. So the legal service provider questions is the majority of them want to say, how do I become a citizen? I want to become a citizen, because they feel that that's really the only way that they'll be protected from deportation, which in a way it's true and it's not true. So, and that's one of the reasons why the county decided to invest and create this program very quickly, because of the demand that people really need to speak to attorneys, and they don't have the money to do so, as they're so expensive. So that's definitely sort of two specific areas that we're seeing changes. And we definitely want to get more data, to get more information, and sort of that's the other piece that we want to go to cities with. Whatever type of information that you have, that you are able to share, obviously general information as to sort of the makeup of your city residents, then we do want to have that information so that it can help us shape a better picture of really the county residents as a whole.
Comments, questions? Commissioner Onet?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had I just have two questions. So, one, in the beginning, you said that we give a red card so that they don't have to speak with an ICE attorney. And I was wondering, because I've done some pro bono, I mean, immigration is not my field and I'm an attorney.
Yeah.
But the ICE attorneys and the judges, immigration judges, are sometimes, I mean, I don't know all of them, but my experience has been that they are very generous too and want to do the right thing, and they are not necessarily the enemy who want to kick you out.
Absolutely.
They're just trying to work through, do their job and, be within the law.
Yes.
And so I was just wondering, like, why do you have that card that says, like, you don't need to speak with the ICE attorney if you don't need to? Like, has it been helpful or has
Yeah, the red card, just as a point of clarification, is in case that they are approached by an ICE agent. So usually the ICE agents are the ones that go around and sort of want to identify people that are undocumented, and they want to put them through deportation proceedings. So there are certain rights that all individuals have. One of those rights is they don't have to provide any information to ICE. So that's what those little red cards do. Because, when we, a lot of this, people that are going through this process, most likely than not, if they're approached by someone that's wearing, sort of an ICE shirt or anything like that, they're not going to remember what it is that they're supposed to say or what they're not supposed to say. So that's the purpose of those little red cards, that it basically provides a written statement that would be given to an ICE patrol agent, an ICE agent, that would basically say, I don't have to talk to you, I don't have to give you any information. The only time when actually an ICE agent can take someone and arrest someone is if they have a signed warrant by a federal judge that has a person's specific name. So if they're looking for someone specific, that little red card is not really going to do anything, because if they know who they're there to look for, then that's not really going to provide them any type of sort of security of safety, which we don't really see very many of those unless they're in cases of, criminals or that sort of thing. We did have a case last month, actually, to where there was an individual that was going into court, and he was being, because he was, had been charged with drug trafficking. So ICE went into the courthouse, and that's where they picked him up, because they had a warrant, and sort of, that's one of the only cases that we've seen in the county. So that's, those, we find that those cards give people a sense of security, because really knowing if I just give them this card, then I'm telling them I don't have to talk to you, and that's okay. So that's the whole purpose of that. And there's been a number of organizations that have created those little red cards. And we are translating them in multiple languages so that people know exactly what it says, right? One side is English and then the other side it's in their language, so that they can better understand.
So, are there like ICE agents who are going beyond what they're supposed to do and like knocking people's houses to figure out who are?
We haven't seen any active raids in Santa Clara County at this point. But one of the things that actually we are working on establishing, and it just went live in the city of San Jose last month, which is the Rapid Response Network. And what this is there's a phone number that if people sort of see a potential raid happening, whether that is at a shopping center, whether it's in a neighborhood, they call that phone number. What it does is it activates sort of a team, and that's phone number is answered by a person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what it does is if there's a phone call that comes in, and it sort of activates both a legal observer as well as an attorney that then go to this location and sort of try to determine whether or not is this really a raid happening, is it not. So we haven't really seen, there was a call today that we actually came through, but we haven't sort of know whether or not that was an actual raid or it was just, something else. But again, it's people don't know. One of the things we had heard was that, I mean, I think this was mostly in LA, that ICE agents were actually wearing police jackets, and they were introducing themselves as police. So that was really troublesome to us, because again, they're not police, they shouldn't be introducing themselves as police. So that's sort of the other piece. And there was a press conference that happened with a number of the chiefs of police in all the different cities. When I say that, probably happened back in April, to where they were very clear about nobody except for an actual city police or police officer can introduce themselves as police. So that's, that is one of the other pieces that we're watching very closely, and that we're hoping that the Rapid Response Network would help us track as well.
Yes, the other question I had was, you said that even if somebody becomes a citizen, it may or may not help them get all the protection. And that was, I'm an immigrant who became a citizen, so I'm like really curious as to how.
So we, and that's sort of more, we haven't definitely seen any policies coming down from the administration that says, if you're a naturalized citizen, we can take that away from you. But I think because of the majority of the information and the majority of the policies that have been put forth, do target pretty much everybody except for those that have natural-born citizens or naturalized citizens, that's sort of the only thing we can say for certain that it's currently keeping you safe. But one of the things that we do tell people is that we want you to sort of stay informed. And even though we haven't heard that they're targeting citizens, not mainly naturalized citizens, we are sort of providing information that would prepare people to sort of be able to advocate for themselves or sort of know when something like that would happen. But no, we have not, heard any policies that are coming forth that would target naturalized citizens at this point.
But you have in your mind, like looking at the policies that are coming down.
Absolutely.
You have that kind of
Yes.
analysis that it might happen in the future.
We, one of the groups that unfortunately right now we are very afraid that it's being targeted is the DACA recipients, which is the Deferred Action youth that have, what it does is that program was created by the Obama administration that provides them temporary work permits. So in the news yesterday, it came out that they are looking at terminating that program, which would mean that it would sort of terminate protections for 800,000 youth that are currently able to take advantage of that program and are able to work because it's a work permit. So that it's almost like little by little, they're sort of going through every population that has some type of protection. So that is why we are really sort of very closely and almost on a daily basis have to really be engaged with a number of groups that we talk to on a regular basis to know what's new and what does that mean and how do we sort of try to provide information and let people know this is how this is affecting you or this is how this is not affecting you.
Thank you.
Sure.
I wanted to ask, so often services like this are more focused on the San Jose population, and we hear in the northern part of the county that people have trouble accessing these types of offices and services. So can you tell us how you're doing outreach to the northern part of the county?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is exactly what the Deportation Defense and Education Program it's hoping to accomplish. We were very strategic in the organizations that were chosen for the grants because we want to make sure that all the areas within the county were covered. So we do have, and there is about 18 different organizations that receive funding that will be available, and we have posted the list of all the different organizations and the locations that they're covering on our website, as well as on the Board of Supervisors website. So that is, and we are holding our first grantees meeting next week to better coordinate sort of the way that agencies can refer people to other agencies that may be closer to where they live. So that's one of the things that that specific program is seeking to address. Yeah.
Just have one last question. We've been talking about legal issues. What about immigrant relations? Do you cover immigrant relations, just hate crimes?
Yes, we're actually working with the Office of LGBTQ Affairs, which is one of the only offices in the nation. And we're going to be working directly with the District Attorney's Office on launching sort of this line that will provide the ability for people to report hate crimes, as well as for there to sort of be able to share any type of information related to that. I think, and we sort of want to do it independently of the District Attorney's Office, for the main reason that hate crime is a lot more sort of, it has a very specific definition. So we want to call them hate incidents, which happen a lot more often than hate crimes, according to sort of the definition of it. So we want to make sure that people are able to report, any type of hate incident that they may see, so that we can have a better idea as to, is this an isolated case, or is this sort of people that are being, specifically targeted for certain things? So we are working on creating a very specific line and system that will allow residents to be able to report any type of hate incident that happens to them or to someone else.
Any last questions? We've really used your time really well. Thank you so very,
Sure.
very much.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate your coming.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll leave those, and I'll leave some of my business cards as well, so that if there's any additional questions, feel free to contact me anytime. Okay, thank you so much.
We will be.
Thank you.
We'll do a little change from issues to planning. We have a retreat scheduled for Tuesday, August 15th. And I want to talk a little bit about what we've done so far in our thinking about the retreat, and then open it up for other ideas. It is an evening retreat, 5 to 9. And our main purpose is to identify priorities for our next, fiscal year, 2017, 2018. And then to focus our work plan to make it consistent with the priorities. Let's see. I guess I have some items I'd like on an agenda, but before I go through my list, I'd like to hear ideas that the commissioners have, things that are important to have on the agenda.
So I think in the June meeting, I was going to look at names of people who could come and present to the HRC regarding, the effect of the brain on different smartphones and devices. And I have 3 names from Stanford University who are doing, high-tech on the edge work in this field. And so I was wondering, should I reach out to them to see if they are interested in participating in the HRC beforehand, and then figure out next steps after that, or because I don't know right now whether even one of them would be interested or not, or has the time and the bandwidth to come, or is this something that we discuss?
I guess my suggestion would be to bring it as a focus area, and then see how it falls out with our priorities for the next year. And if it becomes a priority and it's something you want to take on, then it would make sense to initiate the contact.
Okay, so this would still be preliminary?
I think so,
Okay, okay, I get it. I just wanted to understand the process, yeah.
I really want us to focus in the August retreat on our priorities. I think sometimes we focus on ideas, on programs that we want to do. And that has been very successful for us. But this year, there's so many things we could be working on that I think if we first identify the priorities that we want to work on, and then we start looking at programs, it'll just help us to focus and manage our time. I mean, we are commissioners, but we are also volunteers and have other lives, and we want to be sure that we can deliver on the commitments that we make. And so I guess I would encourage people to think about the things that matter to you: immigration, housing, mental health, and let's talk about that at the retreat. And I would also encourage us to think about programs more creatively, more broadly perhaps than we have in the past. We've done a lot of successful forums, but I've seen that there are other counties or other commissions have done some different study sessions, letter writing campaigns. Mountain View, I think it was Mountain View, or the county prepared a document, A Tale of Two Cities, that laid out disparities in living wages and education, that helped them make a presentation to the council to support a minimum wage. So there might be some study sessions that we want to look at or recommendations we want to make. So I just want us to think more creatively about what activities we take on. Two things that we'll be doing, certainly, are to have a presentation from the council response team. You all remember that our council passed a resolution for a safe, protective, inclusive environment, city, at the end of the last calendar year. We've been working as a committee to draft a response to that council recommendation that would put together policy, program, and campaign recommendations. And we've been working with our summer intern, Yari Lin, who has done a fabulous job of looking at the data that we have and is beginning to do interviews so we can really get a pulse of the community. And she'll be presenting her findings at the retreat. And then we'll also be presenting some recommendations from the subcommittee for the whole commission to review. And we'll be planning for a council study session on that. Food requests, topic issues, I mean, anything.
It's going to be in the evening, so at Mitchell Park.
Oh, good. Okay, well, if there are, between now and the end of the month, if people have some ideas that are important to include on the agenda, please communicate them.
Well, I actually do have an idea. One is I'm concerned about the erosion of human and civil rights in the country since the election. A lot of progress that has been made over the last several decades is now, rapidly deteriorating. And, we may have to really fight this battle at the grassroots level in the cities, the counties, and the states if we want to protect and preserve our civil liberties. So I think this is a place where the Human Relations Commissions, such as ours, should really be speaking up in support of human rights and civil rights.
I hope that'll be on the table.
One issue that I would like to address at the retreat is to throw out there is maybe diversity in tech. I mean, that has been a really big issue recently, and to the extent that we as the Human Relations Commission in sort of the city that's considered the heart of Silicon Valley, to the extent that we can encourage, be part of, and facilitate that ongoing discussion and implementation of policies and programs that speed that up, I think would be fantastic. And I have other topics as well, but that's one that comes to mind at the moment.
How did I want to respond to that? I think we've been talking a little bit about that in our subcommittee, and to me, that's a really rich area for us to investigate and prioritize. And it's also a place where we could start to look at more creative ways of looking at it, partnerships with the Chamber of Commerce, partnerships with different industry groups, study sessions. I think there's a lot that can contribute to a very rich discussion.
So is the retreat going to be sort of a brainstorming session, or is it one step beyond that? So should we have sort of the brainstorming done prior to the retreat?
Usually we do the brainstorming at the retreat,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd like to continue that, particularly since we're 4/7 of a commission.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we should, but to the extent that we can, if we can do some self-brainstorming and some self-thinking and really come prepared to present one or two priorities, that are important to you, to each individual, then I think it'll make our discussion more efficient.
Would you like us to send those to someone in advance, or just come with a list, or?
I think to the extent that we can send them ahead of time, we'll have a flip chart ready to look at them, but then I want to be able to continue to add to it as
Definitely.
other commissioners are there. There is a form that Minka had made for us last year for a planning document, and I'm going to ask Mary to send that out as a blank form. It'll give you sort of a template to look at programs. So if you get beyond your priorities and there are some particular implementation programs, you can think about how we would proceed.
Yeah, I mean, along with the blank one, it would be good to kind of see what happened last year. So if we can see the filled-in one from last year, then we can kind of go from there.
I can send you the one that we're using for the elder abuse program, and we should also send out the activities for this year, the review of our proposed activities and our accomplishments. Good suggestion, thank you. So the last agenda item is an update on work plans, and I'll turn that over to committee heads.
All right, I'll be happy to jump in. So I am on the committee with Chair Stinger and Vice Chair Chen to organize an elder abuse awareness event. We are partnering with the Community Health Fair that's co-sponsored by the Y and by the City of Palo Alto, and the fair will be held September 23rd here at City Hall. We have made a lot of progress over the past week. We met with one of the co-chairs of the Community Health Fair, Jade Chow, and talked about the planning, the logistics, the speakers, and so forth who will be presenting our elder abuse awareness event. Our plan is to reach out to a number of subject matter experts who represent different aspects of elder abuse, people who work in the legal area who specialize on senior legal assistance, people who work in criminal justice from the police department or the DA, also social workers and psychologists and physicians who all work with the elder population and help them deal with abuse issues. Our goal is to organize the event such that it can be both informative and interactive, which is one of the key themes of this year's Community Health Fair. We don't want it to just be a bunch of experts sitting kind of in a panel lecturing everybody. So our hope is that we will have a lot of takeaway literature that people can take home with them if they want to learn more, but also have our experts kind of strategically placed. They'll be actually out here in the lobby because the fair will be right here in King Plaza and also inside. And then maybe have a moderator kind of go from each subject matter expert to another and let him or her discuss that aspect of elder abuse and what can be done about it. And then people can come and ask questions and engage with the speakers, instead of the speakers being really remote, kind of up on a stage in the audience out there, very separate. We want to bridge that separateness and make people feel really comfortable talking to the experts who come and learn more about the phenomenon and learn what can be done about it and what can be done to prevent it. And we hope just really help make our seniors a much safer population than they are now. So we'll be continuing to work with the Y and the whole planning committee over the summer to nail down all the logistics and plans and get our speakers invited. And of course, we hope all our fellow commissioners will come to the community health fair. So right now, the timetable would be Saturday, September 23rd from 10:30 to noon. And we'll be probably partly in this room. We're not sure yet how we'll use this room. It may be an audience setting, it may be a literature table. We may use the displays here to kind of pop up facts and factoids about elder abuse so that people who are shyer and want to be on the periphery can be learning and engaging that way, and then have our speakers out here so that people who are a little more bold and more interested can interact more one-on-one with them as well out in the lobby. And anyone who has suggestions or ideas, we're welcome to take that on board, because we're still very much in the planning stage, but we appreciate all the support we've had from the commission.
Thank you, Jill. I've sort of hinted at this and probably described it well enough, but I'll just flesh it out a little bit. We do have a council response team, and that committee is myself, Commissioner Gordon Gray, and Commissioner Alisani. We're working with staff and with our summer intern to give some legs to a value statement that was well put forth in the end of last calendar year. I think I've already said we're looking at quantitative data. We're looking at the National Community Survey of Cities, some other data that we've seen from the Healthy Cities Initiative. And now we're moving on to some qualitative data by interviewing different people in the community. Maria Love was one of the people that we wanted to invite so that everybody could hear what the county is doing on immigration. We are a couple weeks away from actually looking at recommendations, but we're looking at them in a format of corrective issues, preventative issues, and community building issues. And we're looking at the different population segments that are outlined in the council resolution. And we hope to have a lot to present to you on August 15th.
So, I did not ask that to her, but I was wondering, is the illegal immigrant problem there in Palo Alto too?
That was a question I actually had for her also. We don't have evidence of incident reports in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
Commissioner reports.
Well, I'll report that I, Chair Stinger, and Commissioner Lee all were judges at the chili cook-off, which was totally awesome. And we hope all of our colleagues will join us next year. It was a great way to engage with the community. Oh, and Councilmember Koo was there as well. Everybody rocked on that. We had to be there. It was just a lot of fun. And it's, I think we do so much of our work isolated as either council members or commission members. It's nice to be part of a big community event where there were just probably thousands of people, it seemed like, swarming all over Mitchell Park, and get to chat with people in a much more informal way and just have a great day celebrating the 4th.
Agreed. Thank you for inviting us to judge.
Thank you for being there.
I have a few things that I attended this month. One I wanted to report on was I'm the liaison on Healthy Cities, and at our last meeting in, I guess it was June, the Palo Alto Art Department came and presented to say that they're sponsoring a season of play for the quarter September to December 2017. And I wanted to talk about that because they're partnering with different community and civic organizations to foster a Palo Alto image, to build connections, get beyond the image of city of Palo Alto being a place to work and leave, but it's a city to play and has a little bit of soul and can taste chili on July 4th and have some fun. And then, let's see. Commissioner Gordon Gray and I went to the county HRC meeting. They hosted the HRCs from neighboring cities. And that was really a good learning experience. In the past, we've invited the commissions to come for a brunch. This time the county invited us there, and we got to see a little bit of how the county HRC works. They're a much larger group than we are, and they're organized into standing committees, which we can't do. But they may be a resource to us in a couple ways. One, they have a social equity committee that's working on a bias and hate accounting report, which is similar to what Director Love described to us. They're also working on safe housing as a human right and making Santa Clara County a human rights county. So those are avenues that we might want to look at as we develop our priorities. If they're a resource to us, we should take advantage of it. They have an outreach committee that's working on a Human Rights Day for December 10th, 2017. And I know the people working on that committee are going to outreach to us, whether we volunteer or not. We will be volunteered to be participants in that. So that was from the county level, and we also heard what different cities are doing. And there were a couple of things that caught my ear. One, Mountain View is initiating a LGBTQ needs and assets study, and I've talked with the commissioner who's doing that. And we're going to talk to the people at the county who are orchestrating that to see if there's ways to have that be reported consistently across the different cities in our county. And they're also looking in Mountain View at pathways for non-citizens to vote, which might be something we'd want to explore in our immigrant work. And then just the last thing, I went to Elder Abuse Day. It was a program put on by the county to increase awareness of the abuse and the situations and the resources available. I made some good contacts and shared them with our committee, and we'll be inviting some people from the district attorney's office. So those are my reports.
So I don't have much of a report other than the fact that I went to the chili cook-off, but since it's fresh in our mind, I wanted to make a few comments about it. I think, there's an opportunity potentially in future years to use it as an opportunity to, the 4th of July is a very American holiday. Using it as an opportunity to really explain what being an American means and being inclusive of the, different backgrounds and cultures that make up America. It's not just about the stereotypical America or white America, but, sort of the melting pot. And so, one of the things I saw happen in Durham, North Carolina, where I had previously served on Human Relations Commission there, is they used the 4th of July as an opportunity to really celebrate the different national origins of people in that community. So they had different flags up, but, we're all Americans, but we come from different places, nation of immigrants. And so maybe we could integrate some of that aspect of, what it is to be an American to all 4th of July celebration next year. And maybe for the chili cook-off, since it's sort of a melting pot, people can bring their various variations of chili. I'm sure it's something that different cultures have their own take on. So that might be a way of, exposing the community to something that is American, but, what is America? Yeah, out of our differences, we are one sort of idea. So since this commission participates so much in that chili cook-off, that would be an interesting spin to put on the event next year, I think. So.
I can pass that feedback on to the planning committee. I think those are some really great ideas. Thank you.
One of the things that came out of the county meeting was, and I an interest in doing more cultural fairs and cultural celebrations. And there was a lot of interest in that, but there was also a caveat that sometimes there needs to be a deliverable. And I think with the way you've addressed it in July, to do it around July 4th, keeps it fun and valuable at the same time, and I think that's something to follow through on. Thank you for coming out during your break. And then lastly, staff liaison report.
I have a couple things. So I sent an email out from Kate Young about the programs, the Palo Alto housing programs, and after I forwarded that on, she sent me another email, and I know Commissioner Onan has participated in their digital leaders. So this is a flyer for those programs. So I just decided to print the flyer out and bring their activities, their programs that are coming up. They're coming up later in July. So I just wanted to share that. And then also, just about, I don't know if any of you watched the video for, did I short, is there one more? Okay. Yeah, I was going to watch the video, the council meeting regarding his wrap that the council approved the subcommittee's recommendation for the different agencies. So that was approved, and also they approved another additional $44,000 to go towards his rep. So that $44,000 will be attached to the RFP that's going to be going out for that, which was ACS's funding, and that will be going out in sometime in August. Purchasing's really busy right now because it's beginning of the fiscal year, and so they're setting up all the contracts. So the RFP just has to get slipped in there, and it'll be done sometime in August. So just wanted to report on that.
Thank you. I think we're at the end of our agenda. If there's any final comments, suggestions for the retreat on August 15th.
So I had that question for the on the table. He had that specific day on November 15th, and I was wondering if you guys got that, like why he wants all the meetings to happen on November 15th, and like not like going. You could like have a meeting tomorrow and then host up to November 15th. Like, did you guys understand like what was the reasoning behind having it on November 15th? Like he wanted like this 1 million meetings, like 1 million people to like have it on that same exact day.
I think it's a national program, so it's happening all across the country, city by city, and that's the date that's been chosen nationally. So for participating, we're part of a larger initiative. Except instead of doing it city by city, we're doing a whole region.
Okay.
But we're still part of this national initiative.
Oh.
And that's the date that's set.
Okay. Now I
And
understand.
sometimes it's just more powerful to do it on one day, right? Like National Night Out, for instance, is one night a year.
Yeah, I understood it for the momentum and the reporting sequence. Then they'll have all of their data, all their documentation, and their reporting.
So I wanted to make a suggestion either for if the next meeting is the retreat, either for the retreat or for the next regular meeting. I think in the emails that we got forwarded to us, there were a lot of comments about the RV situation around El Camino. And so I think that is an issue particularly ripe for discussion at this commission. And if it's not resolved by November 15th, that's something that I would be interested in hosting an event, inviting some of those people too. But I would love a discussion on that and to get an update on what the city is currently doing, what their thinking is, and perhaps have this commission inform or be part of that process in determining what next steps to take on it.
I think you need to repeat that at the retreat. I think that was it's an important issue.
Does the staff know, do you guys know if the city is planning on making any decisions between now and our retreat on that particular issue that might require more expedient involvement from us?
I think that's probably a better question for
Crew.
I know the city manager is actually reaching out to other cities to come up with some sort of a solution in order to not have, not in a sense, kind of kick the bucket elsewhere.
Yeah.
And really kind of look at the solution rather than just passing it along. And so it's a regional effort, and so he's reaching out to some of the other cities. On the council, that hasn't come up to discussion as of yet.
So before they do anything, they're going to bring it before council after discussing it with other cities? Or do they have sort of the bandwidth to go and implement some stuff without council at this point in time?
I think the city manager might want to report back to
Okay.
council. I don't know if it's going to be an agenda item or not,
Okay.
but definitely report back and give us an idea of what him and the other cities have discussed.
I mean, to the extent that my fellow commissioners agree, I think if it comes before the council, or if the council is interested in sort of involving us with it, I think I would certainly welcome it, and perhaps others in the commission would as well.
I absolutely, absolutely. I think it's a great idea.
Great, thank you.
Let's see. I need my handbook. I'm not sure if I can do this. Can I ask you to follow up, just keep current on that issue and bring a status report to the retreat?
Yep.
That's legitimate.
Did you want me to reach out to the city manager to see what they're doing, or just hold off until?
I was thinking more of following
Just
the
more
press,
press,
since
yeah,
the council's
okay.
on holiday
Okay.
until August?
I think we return August 14th.
So I really don't think there's going to be much official response, but just in terms of the press,
Yeah.
it would be really,
Okay, that I can do.
thank
Mhm.
you.
I can also contact the city manager's office tomorrow to see if I can get some information too.
Okay, if that's
That
permissible,
would be-
yep.
Okay.
Anything else?
So I was wondering, since we have the retreat in August, will we have the Thursday meeting in August as well? Or?
The retreat will replace
Okay.
our standard meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I don't think we need a motion.
We don't, okay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.